Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take those really dense, really technical documents, the ones that actually shape, how things get built, and we try to pull out the strategy behind them.
Exactly. And today we're tackling global green building standards, specifically LEED. It's the big one, the certification most people know.
Right.
But we're not just doing a flyover, we're going deep. We're zooming right in on one single um, really critical requirement in the latest version. That's LEED BD+C, new construction V5.
Okay, so our source material today really focuses on just one credit requirement, PRc2. Seems small, right? But it's all about needing an accredited professional, an AP, on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission, yours and mine, is to figure out not just what the rule says, but why it's there. The thinking behind it, why mandate this expert, what's this one little requirement tell us about the whole philosophy of LED V5.
It's actually a perfect way to look at it because understanding this one point, this decision about putting the right person on the team, it really shows how the people who made the standard think about successful green building.
How so?
Well, it tells us it has to be driven by integrated expertise right from the start. It's not just about passing an audit at the very end, which can be, super expensive if you messed up earlier.
Okay. So we're going to unpack that. We'll look at integration, streamlining, and this really key difference between just having someone certified versus having a certified principal, someone with actual authority.
That's the plan. But hey, before we dive into the weeds of E5, if this kind of detailed look at technical standards, at sustainability rules, at these high-level certifications is, useful for you,
Yeah, if this is your world.
definitely hit subscribe right now. You really don't want to miss our next deep dive where we get into the nitty-gritty details that actually drive industries and, frankly, where the money flows.
Absolutely. Okay, let's set the scene properly. LEED BD+C, new construction V5. That's a whole lot of letters. Let's break it down. Why is the BD+C new construction part so important here? What does that mean?
Right, context is everything. So BD+C, that's building design and construction. Think major projects, commercial buildings, hospitals, schools, high-rise residential, basically anything being built new from the ground up.
Or a massive overhaul, right? Like gutting a whole building.
Exactly. A really significant full building renovation would fall under this too. We're talking about the core and shell, the major systems.
Not just painting the walls or putting in new carpet.
Definitely not. This track deals with the big stuff. Where the building sits, how it handles rainwater, the actual structure, the skin of the building, the envelope, the main heating and cooling systems, the energy use, the carbon footprint of the concrete and steel. We get the idea.
Yeah, the fundamental, long-lasting decisions.
That's it. The decisions made under BD+C are often, pretty much irreversible once construction starts. And their impact environmentally is massive compared to, say, an interior fit-out, which is ID+C, or managing an existing building, which is O+M.
Okay, that makes sense. BD+C is the heavy hitter. Now, what about the V5? Version 5. That sounds like it's not the first rodeo. What does moving to V5 signal? Is it just tweaking things, or is it a bigger shift?
It's generally a pretty significant evolution, moving from older versions like V4 or V4.1 to V5. Well, the big trend is pushing harder towards performance outcomes rather than just following a checklist.
Can you give an example? Performance versus checklist.
Sure. So an older, more prescriptive version might have said something like, install low-flow toilets that use X gallons per flush. That's a checklist item. You install it, you check the box.
Simple enough.
Right. But V5 is much more likely to say, demonstrate that your building's total predicted water use is, say, 30% below a calculated baseline. That's performance-based. How you get there is more open, but you have to prove the outcome. Ah, I see. And proving the outcome sounds harder, more complex.
It absolutely is. The second you shift to performance, you need sophisticated tools. You need energy modeling, water use calculations, maybe even life cycle assessments or LCAs to figure out the impact of your material choices. You need real expertise to even do the math.
So V5 isn't just an update, it's raising the bar on technical complexity.
Definitely. V5 pushes harder on really tough issues like decarbonization, getting the carbon emissions way down. It looks more at resilience, like how the building handles climate change impacts. Often it brings in more social equity considerations too. These aren't simple things you can just tick off a list.
Okay.
They demand, really specialized knowledge, systems thinking, predictive analysis, and this constant upping of the technical ante. Well, it loops right back to why we're focusing on this specific requirement, PRc2, the need for that expert LEEAP. If the rules get harder, the team needs someone who truly understands them. Gotcha. So the complexity of V5 itself kind of justifies needing an expert on board. Now let's talk about PRc2 itself. You said it's worth a possible 1 point in a system that has, what, over 100 possible points.
Yeah, the total is usually around 110, depending on the specifics.
Okay, so 1 point out of 110. That sounds like almost nothing. Why are we making such a big deal about this single point? Is it really that important?
It seems small, but this is where we need to think about what I'd call a strategic point. It's not about the numerical value as much as its position in the whole system. Like, think of the keystone in an arch.
The stone at the very top that holds everything together.
Exactly. It might not be the biggest stone, but without it, the whole structure is compromised. PRc2 is kind of like that. It's structurally critical, even if it's just 1 point.
So getting this 1 point, it's like an investment that unlocks the potential for the other points, the big ones.
That's a great way to put it. It's the human capital investment. You put this expertise in place, and suddenly the team is actually capable of chasing those really valuable high-point credits, effectively. It's like the entry ticket to playing the game seriously.
Okay, give me an example. What are some of those high-value credits?
Well, you've got things like EAC2, optimized energy performance. That one can be worth, up to 18, sometimes 20 points, huge chunk. Or MRC1, building life cycle impact reduction, basically looking at the embodied carbon in your materials. That can also be a big point earner.
And those are hard to get, I assume.
Incredibly hard. They require really detailed energy modeling that has to start super early, like in the first design sketches. Or they need complex calculations about the carbon footprint of every material you choose. If you try to just wing it without an AP guiding that process from the very beginning, well, it's usually a disaster.
You end up spending way more time and money trying to fix things later.
Or you just give up on the points entirely because it's too late to make the needed changes efficiently. So yeah, that 1 point for PRc2, for having the AP, it acts like a signal. It says, okay, this team understands the assignment. They've brought in the expertise needed to avoid the chaos later.
It's like a filter for seriousness. If you're not willing to invest in getting this 1 point right, you're probably not set up to succeed on the really demanding stuff.
Pretty much. It's an internal indicator that the project is committed to the rigor that LEED V5 demands, especially for those big-ticket performance credits.
And we can see why that expertise is so vital just by looking at the resources listed alongside the standard in our source material.
Yeah.
Language, addenda, resources and tips, courses, forum. That list alone tells you something, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That list is gold. It tells you LEV5 isn't just a book you read once. It's a living, breathing, changing thing.
Lots.
Well, addenda means they issue updates, corrections, clarifications all the time. You have to keep track. Language suggests the wording itself is precise, maybe even legalistic, and needs careful interpretation.
Okay.
Then you have resources and tips, courses, a forum. That means people need ongoing help, they need training, and there are complex issues being actively debated and interpreted by the community. It's not static.
So the AP isn't just someone who, passed a test 5 years ago and checked out.
Not if they're doing their job right. They need to be the person constantly monitoring those addendas, reading the forum discussions, understanding the latest official guidance. They're the interpreter, the translator.
Translating this constant stream of technical updates into actual practical steps for the project team right now.
Exactly. A typical project manager or an architect, they just don't have the bandwidth to track all that nuance for LED on top of their main job. The AP's role is specifically to manage that flow of information. So requiring the AP, PRc2, is basically the USGBC, the Green Building Council that runs LED, acknowledging just how complex their own system is.
Right. And they're saying, okay, it's complex, so you must have someone qualified on your team whose job it is to handle that complexity.
Wow. Okay, so trying to do a LEED V5 project without that dedicated AP sounds like trying to navigate, tax law during constantly changing regulations without an accountant who specializes in it.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually. You might muddle through, but you're likely to make costly mistakes, miss crucial deadlines, or fail an audit months later because you missed one sentence in an addenda update from 6 months ago.
Which could derail the whole certification effort.
Absolutely. That's the risk PRc2 is designed to minimize right from the start. It's about process integrity.
Okay, that sets the stage really well. We see the complexity, the constant updates, the need for interpretation. So now let's pivot from the technical landscape, to the why. The source material is pretty explicit about the intent behind PRc2. It lists two main goals. Let's take the first one. To encourage team integration required by a LEED AP. What does team integration actually mean in the context of a big construction project? Yeah, integration can sound a bit like, corporate buzzword territory.
Right, like synergy.
Exactly. But here, it's really practical. It's about breaking down the traditional walls, the silos that exist between different disciplines on a project. And those silos are, frankly, often inefficient and lead to missed opportunities, especially for sustainability.
Okay, paint a picture of those silos. What does a non-integrated project look like?
Well, historically, it's often very linear. The architect does their design, maybe focusing on the look and the space. Then they kind of, throw it over the wall to the structural
And
engineer.
make sure it won't fall down.
Right. Then they pass it to the MEP engineer, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, who has to figure out how to cram all the pipes and wires and ducts into the structure the other folks design. And then eventually it gets to the construction team to actually build it.
And where does sustainability fit into that picture?
Often it was an afterthought. Maybe someone did an energy model late in the game, or they tried to pick some green materials near the end. It wasn't woven in from the beginning.
And you get conflicts, right? Like the structural engineer picks a certain concrete mix because it's cheap and cures fast, but it has a terrible carbon footprint. And that completely blows the sustainability goal the architect had hoped for.
That is the classic example.
Yeah.
Yes. Or the architect designs huge windows for the view, but doesn't coordinate early enough with the MEP engineer, who then has to specify a massively oversized, energy-guzzling air conditioning system to handle the solar heat gain.
Okay, so the AP, their role is to stop that, to force the conversation.
Exactly. The requirement says integration is required by the AP. Their presence and their specific LED knowledge acts as the catalyst. They're the ones who are supposed to bring the architect, the structural engineer, the MEP engineer, the owner, the contractor, everyone into the same room early.
The sustainable conductor you mentioned earlier.
Right. They conduct the orchestra. They ensure that the structural engineer's concrete choice is looked at for carbon before it's locked in. They make sure the HVAC system design reflects what the team building the walls and roof are actually planning to install in terms of insulation. They help manage the trade-offs against the owner's budget.
So it's not just about talking, it's about making interdependent decisions, where one team's choice directly impacts another's, and the AP is the one who understands those connections through the lens of LE points.
Precisely. They force those sometimes difficult conversations early on when changes are still relatively easy and cheap to make. They keep everyone pulling towards the same lead target.
And this also highlights that implied knowledge gap you talked about. The architect knows architecture, the engineer knows engineering, but the AP is the one who knows LE well enough to connect, say, how the landscaping choices impact the heat island effect credit, which then ties into the energy performance of the building.
Yeah, they hold those cross-disciplinary threads together. Most team members are specialists in their own right, but the AP needs that broader LED-specific view to integrate everything effectively.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense for the integration part. But let's look at the second stated intent. This one caught my eye because it sounds much more, well, administrative. It says the goal is also, and to streamline the application and certification process.
Right. This is about efficiency, about risk management, and frankly, about making the USGBC's life easier too.
Making their life easier.
How so? Well, think about it. Certifying a LEED building, especially BD+C V5, requires submitting a mountain of documentation, calculations, drawings, spec sheets, narratives. It can be thousands of pages. The USGBC reviewers have to go through all of that.
Okay.
If that documentation is messy, incomplete, or doesn't quite follow the specific LED requirements and templates, the reviewers have to issue comments, ask for clarifications, send it back.
Which takes time and costs money, both for the project team and for the USGBC reviewers.
Exactly. It creates bottlenecks in the whole system. So by requiring a lead AP, the USGBC is essentially saying, we want someone on your team who knows how to prepare this documentation correctly the first time.
Okay. But let me push back on that a bit. Couldn't a really experienced project manager, someone who's done lots of green buildings but just never bothered to get the AP credential, do just as good a job with the paperwork? Is the AP credential really the key, or is it just experience?
That's a really fair question, and experience is hugely valuable, no doubt. But the LEED AP credential signifies something specific, knowledge of the LEED rating system itself, including its very particular documentation requirements.
So it's not just general sustainability knowledge, it's knowing the AD forms, the reference guides, the online portal.
Yes. And knowing how to navigate the addenda, the interpretations, the specific data points they need for each credit. An AP is trained in the language of LEED compliance. They know what the reviewers are looking for.
So they minimize errors. They know how to avoid the common pitfalls in the submittal.
That's the idea. Fewer errors mean fewer review cycles. Fewer cycles mean a faster, cheaper certification process for the project team. And it means the USGBC reviewers can process more projects more efficiently. It streamlines the flow.
So the AP acts almost like a specialized paralegal for LEED, someone who knows how to assemble the case file perfectly for the judge, who is the USGBC reviewer.
That's not a bad analogy either. They translate the messy reality of a construction project into the clean, compliant narrative that the certification body requires. They ensure the evidence for each credit is presented in the right format.
Okay, so the USGBC isn't just being bureaucratic for its own sake. By requiring the AP, they're sort of outsourcing some of their quality control. They're betting that an AP-led submission will be higher quality.
I think that's exactly right. It protects the integrity and perceived value of the LED certification itself. If the process is smooth and rigorous, the final certification badge means more. So the AP is like the lubricant in the gears of the certification machine.
Interesting. So integration ensures the building is designed and built right from a sustainability perspective.
And streamlining ensures the paperwork proving it is done right efficiently. Two sides of the same coin, really, both aimed at a successful, credible certification.
Okay, we've got the why, the intent behind it. Now let's really dig into the specific words of the requirement itself. It says, at least one principal participant of the project team must be a LEED AP with a specialty appropriate for the project. Let's break that down phrase by phrase. First, at least one principal participant. Why principal?
This, for me, is maybe the most telling part of the whole rule. It's not just saying you need someone with the credential, it's demanding authority.
What do you mean by authority? Why couldn't it be a dedicated, super smart junior staffer who has the AP, or even an external consultant who advises the team? Why do they need to be a principal?
Because integration, like we talked about, often involves making difficult choices. Choices that might cost more up front or take longer or go against the way we've always done it.
Right. The path of least resistance is usually the traditional path.
Exactly. Now imagine a scenario. The consultant, maybe external, maybe junior, says, hey, we really should use this more expensive low-carbon insulation to hit our targets. But the project manager or the lead architect who controls the budget and schedule says, nope, too expensive, find another way, or worse, we'll just skip that point.
If the AP doesn't have real clout, their recommendation gets overruled.
Precisely. A principal participant implies someone with decision-making power, someone who sits at the main project table. They might be a principal architect, a lead engineer, a senior person from the owner's side, or a high-level construction manager. They have the authority to say, no, we are using that insulation, find a way to make it work in the budget.
So the principal requirement is about giving the AP skin in the game and the power to enforce the AP requirements when they clash with other project pressures. It's political capital, essentially.
That's a perfect way to describe it. Political capital within the project team. It ensures the AP isn't just an advisor making suggestions that can be ignored, but a leader who can direct resources and enforce decisions needed for compliance. It connects directly back to making integration actually happen in the real world, where budgets and schedules often fight against sustainability goals.
Wow. So LEED is basically trying to reshape the power dynamics within project teams to make sustainability a core leadership function.
I think it is. It's a structural intervention. They're saying if you want to achieve high levels of LEV5, you can't just have sustainability expertise siloed off somewhere. It needs to be at the leadership table, empowered to make things happen.
That's a huge implication for how design firms and construction companies need to be structured.
It really is. It suggests elevating sustainability experts into those principal roles, not just keeping them as support staff.
Okay, that covers principal participant. The next part is straightforward. Must be a LEED AP. That's the baseline credential, the proof they've passed the exam and understand the fundamentals of the system.
Right, that's the entry ticket. They have the foundational knowledge.
But then comes the really specific part. With a specialty appropriate for the project, this sounds like another layer of filtering. It's not enough to just be any LEED AP.
Correct. This is crucial. The USGBC offers different LEED AP credentials, each with a specific focus, a specialty. And this rule says, for a BD+C project, you need an AP whose specialty matches that project type.
Why? What's the difference? Why wouldn't a general AP, or say an AP who specializes in existing buildings, O plus M, be good enough for a new construction project?
Because the knowledge required is fundamentally different. Think back to what BD+C covers: site impacts, foundations, structural systems, building envelope, major energy systems, water management for the whole site.
The core and shell, the really big picture stuff we talked about.
Exactly. So the LEAP BD+C specialty exam and training focuses deeply on those specific areas. They learn the credits related to site selections, stormwater, energy modeling for new designs, embodied carbon calculations for materials, construction waste management, and so on.
Okay, so what would a different specialist know? Like ID plus C, interior design and construction.
An AP with an ID+C specialty would be an expert on things relevant to tenant fit-outs: material ingredients, low VOC paints and carpets, furniture sustainability, indoor air quality during occupancy, lighting quality, acoustics.
Things that are important, but maybe not the primary drivers for a brand new building's core environmental impact.
Right, that ID+C knowledge is vital for that kind of project, but it doesn't help much when you're trying to optimize the structural steel sourcing or design the main HVAC system for a 50-story tower. Similarly, an O plus M specialist focuses on operating existing buildings, efficiently commissioning systems, tracking energy use, green cleaning policies, water fixture maintenance. Again, different skill set.
So requiring the appropriate specialty is basically a quality control measure. It ensures the expert actually has deep, relevant knowledge for the specific challenges of a new construction project.
Absolutely. It's the USGBC protecting the rigor of the BD+C certification. They're saying, this is complex, high-impact work. We need someone who has demonstrated expertise specifically in this domain. It prevents, say, a team from trying to use an AP who only knows about interiors to guide major decisions about the building's foundation and energy systems.
It emphasizes depth of knowledge over just having a general credential. The expertise has to match the task.
Precisely. It forces the project owner to invest not just in an expert, but in the right expert, someone who can genuinely understand and apply the very specific and complex requirements of the BD+C V5 rating system to the project at hand, especially during those critical early design stages.
Okay, so putting it all together, the requirement demands someone with the authority, principal participant, the baseline knowledge, LED, AP, and the specific depth appropriate specialty. All three have to be there.
Yes. It's a three-legged stool. Take one leg away, and the whole thing becomes unstable. That structure is designed to ensure the AP can effectively drive both integration and streamlining.
All right, let's synthesize this now. We've picked apart the requirement. Principal status, AP credential, the right specialty. And we've looked at the intents, integration and streamlining. How do those pieces fit together to make the whole thing work?
Well, it connects back beautifully. The appropriate specialty ensures the AP has the correct technical knowledge to guide the integration process effectively. They know which sustainable strategies actually work for new construction and how they interact.
So the integration is based on sound technical footing, not just guesswork.
Exactly. Then, the principal participant status provides the authority needed to ensure that technical guidance is actually implemented. It overcomes the political and budgetary hurdles. That ensures efficient implementation.
Okay, so the specialty ensures the right integration, and the principal status ensures effective integration happens efficiently. And both contribute to streamlining the final certification because the right choices were made and documented along the way.
You've got it. The structure of the requirement directly serves the two stated intents. The expertise ensures quality integration, and the authority ensures efficient follow-through, which naturally streamlines the process.
Let's make that connection even more concrete. You mentioned the high-value credits earlier, like optimized energy performance, EAC2. How does having this principal AP with the BD+C specialty actually help a team get those 20 points in practice?
Okay, perfect example. To max out EAC2 and V5, you need sophisticated energy modeling, and it has to start really early when you're still sketching concepts. Let's say the architect proposes a certain amount of glass on the south facade.
Looks great, lots of light.
Right, but the principal AP with the BD+C specialty immediately knows that decision has huge energy implications. Because they have the authority, they can mandate that the energy modeler immediately runs a simulation comparing that design to one with less glass, or maybe higher performance glass, or external shading.
So the energy analysis isn't something done months later just to check a box. It's part of the design iteration right then and there.
Yes. That's the key. If you wait until the design is 80% complete to run the model, and then you find out you're way over your energy target because of all that glass.
It's way too late or way too expensive to fix it. You'd have to change drawings, maybe structural elements.
Exactly. The cost skyrockets, the schedule gets blown, and often the team just says, forget it, we can't afford to make those changes now, we'll just lose those 20 points. But the principal AP, by forcing that analysis early and having the power to make the team react to it, keeps those points on the table. They facilitate making small, low-cost adjustments early rather than facing massive, high-cost changes later.
Wow, so that 1 point for PRc2 for having the right AP in the right position, it's literally the gateway to potentially capturing those huge 20-point credits. Without it, those big scores become practically unachievable.
That's the strategic importance. It's the foundational investment in process and expertise that makes the big performance outcomes possible. It signals that the project understands that achieving deep sustainability isn't just about the final product. It's about how you structure the decision-making process from day one.
So the USGBC, through this requirement, is essentially teaching the industry how to succeed at high-performance green building. It's a lesson in project management structure.
I think that's a fair assessment. They're saying success in V5 requires a top-down, specialized leadership function. You need commitment from the top, and you need deep, relevant expertise driving the process from the very beginning. It can't be delegated down or bolted on at the end.
So for you listening, if you're involved in a new construction project aiming for LDV5, the message seems clear. Your first, most critical decision might not be about the solar panels or the rainwater harvesting. It's about who is leading the LD effort and whether they have the right credentials and the necessary authority.
Right. Skipping PRc2 or trying to get by with someone who doesn't meet all three criteria. Principal, AP, specialty, isn't just risking 1 point. It's fundamentally undermining your project's ability to achieve the major sustainability goals and points embedded throughout the rest of the rating system.
It's a signal of commitment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Both internally and externally. It tells the USGBC, the market, maybe even your own team, that you're serious about the rigor required.
Absolutely. V5 is complex. It demands this level of specialized, empowered expertise to navigate successfully. PRc2 ensures that expertise is baked into the project's leadership structure.
It's fascinating how much strategic thinking is packed into what looks like a simple 1-point prerequisite.
Okay.
It really reveals how these standards aim to shape behavior and structure long before they get to the technical specs.
And thinking about that structure leads to, I think, a really interesting closing thought, kind of a challenge for the whole industry, really. Well, if a LEED BD+C V5 explicitly requires a specialized AP in a principal authoritative role, what does that really mean for the future structure of architecture firms, engineering firms, construction companies?
You mean, how do they actually meet this requirement consistently?
Yeah. Is it enough to just hire these experts as external consultants on a project-by-project basis? Or does this requirement essentially push firms to hire these specialized principal APs as full-time employees, embedding them in their own leadership teams, giving them actual control over internal resources and design direction?
That's a big difference. One is buying expertise when needed. The other is fundamentally changing the internal power structure and skill set of the firm itself.
Exactly. And the answer to that question, hire versus contract for this principal role, really determines how deeply sustainability gets integrated into the DNA of these firms. Is it a core competency led from within? Or is it still ultimately an external service you bring in? The success level in the V5 world might hinge on that choice.
A really provocative question to end on. How integrated does integration need to be organizationally? Fantastic. Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive, really getting into the strategic weeds of a single requirement that shapes global building standards,
Yeah, if understanding these critical details matters to you,
then make sure you subscribe right now. We'll keep bringing you these analyses, focusing on the specifics that truly drive performance and compliance in these technical fields. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
we'll see you next time.